Hey all, so War 7 today, and no Carl this time. I've got some good read fights, a couple quick Doom ones, and I'm also using Hulkling, but not for any particular reason, honestly. He doesn't really answer either of the nodes that I'm taking him with. He's not a Titania counter, especially not when you don't mean to block her and you do, or when this happens. God, I forgot how messy this fight was. But it's more just that he's a good high damage character with some tankiness, as we just showed off there, and he'll be fine. So I don't necessarily need him to be perfect for his fights. He is basically just a strong character that I am making work. So we don't push aggressive there, because even though we probably could have landed the special 2 while the Unblockable was still up, we would have sent her red, which would have been very, very bad. Um, Definitely one of the few ways to quickly die to Titania as a defender. I don't think she brings a whole lot to the table besides that. Thankfully, our regions earlier did do work after we did get hit, so despite that opening being pretty embarrassing, we come out of that losing less than 10%. That's fine. I'll heal that up later. Move on to Mephisto. And obviously, Reed is not Incinerate immune, but he does have energy resistance. And I'm basically not worried about this unless Mephisto is very, very high SIG and I get really, really unlucky and the AI is bad and I miss inputs. Like, that's kind of what it would take for this to go south because we are going to be, giving him less power, both from hitting him and from Mystic Dispersion, um, as well as also reducing any power he gets from his auras. Like we said, if his auras do go off, then we're going to take less damage from it. But the most important thing is just that without being buff immune, because that's a great way to grant Mephisto power, Reed is just going to blunt the power gain enough and just completely destroy the healing. So we don't have to worry about backing off. We don't have to worry about buff control. None of that matters. We just will kill Mephisto by throwing a single special 2 and not losing the debuffs from there. Like, this is already enough to reverse it. We probably could just almost play this like Omega Red the rest of the way. Stay nice and close to him, let him stack those regens and reverse them. But I'm not going to insist on that. It's just going to be what happens, happens. And there we close it out with a special 1, get plenty of charges. Extremely clean Reed fight. We did get a little lucky, not a single aura, but I've taken Mephisto in other places with Reed, and a few auras are not going to swing that fight the other way. So we move on to Doom versus Hercules. Hercules is, of course, a solid placement here because if you take him with anybody who is not immune to either armor break or heal block, then that Infuriate is going to get to 3 buffs, and then he's just debuff immune the entire time. So there are plenty of ways to handle him, but Infuriate is generally, well, infuriating. And somebody like Doom, who is tanky, has class advantage, can easily bypass immortality, and is armor break immune so that Herc never goes indestructible, or sorry, never goes unblockable, is really clean for this. Now, here you're going to see a mistake, because I know that I can't Doom cycle, because he goes stun immune, but I also know that if I throw a special 3 immediately after hitting him while Infuriate is active, I have a 60% chance of having my Fury fail. So why did I do exactly that here? No idea. Is it going to matter? No. Because Herc isn't that strong a defender, Doom is a perfect counter for this node, and generally a bit too strong. So we're completely fine, but definitely a small boo-boo there. We're back on track. If I can go ahead and land a few more heavies like that, we of course have to reparry to get rid of his stun immunity. But the reason I'm doing that is because I do want to land some staggers and just get rid of his buffs, because that's going to get me back to my next special 3 that much faster. And then we're just going to completely bypass the whole immortality thing. So this will do it. You'll notice I back off, make sure there's no Infuriate on me. Go ahead and throw that just to get him that much lower. Have the stagger up in case he somehow survives this. and then we need to avoid immortality, but there's not much chance of that. It's Doom Special 3. And there he goes. So moving on to Apocalypse on the next one. I could honestly do this fight with any of these characters. I would have to be running recoil and get hit. Or no, sorry. I would have to be running recoil or get hit for this fight to kind of spiral out of control. I honestly don't understand why Apocalypse is here. Because, sure, Crumbling, Armor, plus Heal Block is 2 debuffs. But, yeah, again, unless you're running recoil, there's not really any other risk here. Doom is, of course, armor break immune, and so there's no real risk of us ever getting another debuff besides the heal block at all, which is why I'm using him over Reed or Hulkling. But there's not much risk here to anyone. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the full Doom cycle, and we're just going to try and stack the Double Fury. We, of course, can close this out with a Special 2, but we're only really going to get one that does damage, because Apocalypse will, of course, go Incinerate immune, and so I would prefer to climb our way back up to another Special 3, get that Double Fury, and then close things out, as opposed to trying to cash it in now against Apocalypse's famously pretty large health pool. It's actually not nearly as large as a lot of people say it is, if you look at the overall stats. It's more just that he has other tank factors and a little bit of crit resistance, but he is still a fairly large boy. So there we go, there's our second Fury, doing tons of damage. The fight has basically been over since we got to 3 bars the first time, and we don't even get a chance to throw the Special 2 because the Special 1 hits that hard. Moving on to Boss Island, I've healed up, and I have all 3 of these fights in a row here. We're going to do Doom versus Nova. Super clean, super simple. Basically a perfect counter. I forget. Yeah, okay, so I do use some Mr. Fantastic pre-fights here because I have more than I need. Petrify is the main one. I'm going to go ahead and throw them all on, but Petrify is the important one because that's both going to reduce the power that Nova gains from dashing forward, and it's going to reduce how much he gets from return policy. The others are just nice little bonuses, but we really want that Petrify on. It's not like this isn't a very safe fight for Doom even without it, but having that up just makes this basically trivial. I say that now and I feel like maybe I got hit somewhere in this fight. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Nova has a very, very hard time doing damage to Doom, and we are fully in control here. I did mess up a little bit on that auto block, but we hadn't built enough charges for him to go, for him to activate parry. It's just an auto block. There's very little risk to that. And that's actually good for us because it means that we've gotten rid of that when we throw the Special 3. We're fully into the Doom cycle here. Special 2 isn't going to do a whole lot because of how Nova works with feeding off of being hit by Unblockable. So we're going to try and go for another Special 3 here, same as against Apocalypse. We managed to get the stagger up because we know he's going to get a bunch of buffs. And we're going to get rid of them, and that's just going to get us that much closer. Honestly, I think I should have just gone for a third Special 3 here, and it probably would have been that much simpler. But I think I do decide to go ahead and cash this out with a Special 2, and even reduced by as much as Nova reduces damage, these Incinerates still finish things off. Yeah, Doom has big Furies, hits hard, is good. We move on to Nick Fury here. This is probably the fight that is the most me stretching things, honestly. Because again, Hulkling, who I'm using here, isn't really a counter to Nick, and isn't really a counter to this node. It's more just that he does not need to parry. He doesn't have unavoidable debuffs. There's just the one Intimidate on his heavy. And because he ramps off of hitting into block and all of that, he's just good at controlling the arena and controlling Nick, without doing full combos, and therefore without proccing prowess from the Deja Vu node, and then we don't have to worry as much about the block pen. You see me go ahead and intentionally trigger it there because I know that I'm going to be able to manipulate the AI into throwing a heavy, following up, and then I throw that first special 2 to push him over 2 bars so that we don't have to worry as much about the unblockable. Get in a couple hits with the big Furies, but I am now in full back off mode because I am now building towards my next special 2, and I want to go unblockable and not worry about his special 1. And that is exactly what we do here. Powerbacks on Hulkling are, of course, completely cracked. We know he would go unblockable here, but I do block just as I finish that before I dash back to try and bait his heavy, and it does work. And now we're back in a good spot where if we hit him, he goes unblockable, but we also are set up to go unblockable ourselves. There's enough timing in between the various hits of Hulkling's special 2 so that we don't run into the invulnerability from the LMD. We get 2 special 2s in a row, get up all the way up to 4 Furies, and now we just know that we need to throw 1 more, and this is over. So waiting for him to back up. He had me there. I thought he backed up. And now we're going to do a full 5-hit combo into block, go unblockable, and there we go. Fight's over. So that is basically leaning on how flexibly powerful Hulkling is, but it's a good assignment if you're comfortable with him and against Nick. Moving on to Mangog, you guys have seen this fight before. It remains a safe one even with 7 stars on the horizon. I definitely would boost higher against a rank 2. Not in stats, but I mean in terms of like gray boosts and powerbacks. But bluntly, a rank 5 Reed does not need it here. I've taken a rank 5 6-star Mangog before. I've taken a 7-star Mangog before. Reed's going to be completely fine. We basically, like, if this fight goes ideally, then he only throws special 1s. But especially against a 7-star with the extra stats, I kind of assume I eat a special 2 somewhere in this fight. It's just priced into it. What you want to avoid is Mangog being unblockable and unstoppable for an extended period of time. That's how you lose. And one of the best ways to make sure that you avoid that is to also make sure that you are ramping your careful study passives properly, and that Mangog is not alternating specials. That's why, although I normally try to avoid Mystic Dispersion on this node, I back off there, and am willing to trigger Dex to bait that 3rd special 1. It's worth it because it locks in the passive, and then any future special 1s are that much less dangerous. We accept the unblockable special 2 because it hurts, but now he has 2 of those debuffs up, and if he throws another special 2, it will do almost nothing. And if he doesn't immediately go to another special 2, well, we are now ramped enough that the fight is probably going to be over before that's a problem again. That's the basic calculus of this fight. You can survive back-to-back special 2s. And if you are controlling things properly, you probably don't have to worry about any additional ones. The scary part of this fight is if the first special is a special 2 and then you let him alternate. The one time I have died to this, maybe it was twice. So the one time I've died to this in the past year, I'll say, was when that happened. I used a House of X pre-fight, which was a very bad idea because you lose access to the Petrify Mastery. Don't do that. And he insisted on alternating specials. So as long as you can ramp that special 1, you're probably in good enough shape. You don't have to worry about pretty much anything else. And there's Reed. Continues to be my favorite science champ. We did end up winning this war. It was pretty close for a while. We did not have the best overall performance, but thankfully defense came through and we closed it out. Moving on to the next one. I think this one did put us back into Masters, but just barely over the line, and we're definitely still fighting uphill this season. So here's hoping that we can string together a few more wins, put ourselves in a good spot, because there's nothing less fun than needing to win the last few wars. So yeah, hopefully we can get out of that. But until the next one, thank you all so much for watching, and take care.